So our next presenter is Stef Aerts from Odisee University College in Belgium, and he's going to talk about how drivers build consent in Lean. So I am hoping that Stef is here. I will.
Yes,
Yep,
yes.
excellent, good. I'm going to just give a brief introduction, and then I will hand over to you to take us through your presentation. So Stef was trained as an animal production engineer and obtained a PhD in applied biological sciences, both at KU Leuven in Belgium, and served as program director of Bachelor of Agro and Biotechnology at Odisee University College, where he also teaches animal ethics, current topics, and laboratory animal science. He's a visiting professor of veterinary ethics at Ghent University and teaches professional ethics at KU Leuven Faculty of Engineering Technology. Next to his teaching and research, which is on the ethics of animal use and laboratory animal ethics, he's also active in education and quality department at Odisee. His main project has been implementation of a new curriculum framework across the organisation while fostering a culture of lean and sociocratic cooperation. This has led to a position in the steering committee of the Lean HE network in the Netherlands and Belgium.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, I will hand over to you, Stef, to take us through your presentation.
Thank you very much. I have little to add to that introduction. I hope you can see my presentation.
Yes, we
can.
Yep.
Big green screen. Okay, I'll try to go through the presentation in. I sincerely hope that what I'm hearing now is not the fire alarm. I think I'm expected to evacuate now at the start of my presentation. So let me just go check whether I'm expected to leave the building. If not, then I'll be right back. If things are burning, I should definitely go.
Okay, Stef. Yes, you need to check that out. I will kill some time whilst you're away. I'm gonna call out some people in the room who I know. Linda, you're online. What are some of your key takeaways from the conference so far?
I'm really sorry, but I definitely need to go. So
Okay.
There's a fire alarm. I don't know whether you can take over the presentation and just go through it. I see that Ellie Hutink is here. She had the same presentation. I talked her through that in Dutch last week. So if she feels up to it, maybe she can tell a few things.
We will check that, but you need to look after yourself. So you head off.
Hopefully I'll be back in not too long a time. Sorry for that.
This makes me think of how your Lean daily stand-up boards, John. The first method is always health and safety. John, that's it. Lean daily stand-up. Health and safety is where we begin, and this is how we display respect for people. Sorry, I thought I'd dive in and join
I think you should just to help me out, yes. And others feel free as well. I think Stef mentioned, was it Ellie?
Yes, I'm here.
Ellie, yeah, I mean, apparently Stef was suggesting that you might be able to help out with this. Is that? I mean, I don't want to put any pressure on you. So if you can't, that's not a problem.
It's quite a surprise at the moment, and I don't know if I can explain it as quite as well as Stef is able to. So
well, I tell you what we'll do. I will see if I can share my screen just briefly with something else just to get this one off. Hold on.
And I liked what you were thinking about there, John, about, well, what are kind of people's key takeaways from the conference so far? That was a lovely sort of thing to bring in.
So I think we should, until Stef rejoins us, hopefully he will be able to soon. I think I want to throw it out there to our global community, those of us who have attended, numerous sessions, just to throw out what have been your kind of highlights, key takeaways so far. Don't be shy. Put your hand up. Jump in.
I can see Linda's jumping in. Yeah.
Given that you called me out, I feel obliged to respond. I really there's so many of the sessions that I've been able to attend. I watched the Your Kaizen last night. I sort of stayed up and watched that, and I thought there were some really interesting things. I want to go back and rewatch the recording of that, so I might take it in a little bit more. And equally, the digital session this morning, I thought was really lots of parallels with some of the things that are going on here at Cambridge. And I know Kelly was on the call earlier. I'm not sure if she still is, but it's something that she and I will be able to have some discussions about following the conference.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole digital thing, the thing that struck me is just how early we are on that journey still. It sounds crazy to say we've all been working with technology for years, but the pace of change has been enormous over the last few years. And as I said earlier this morning, we are still very much scratching the surface. There's so much potential, but there's a lot of challenges and warnings that we need to overcome as well on the way through that path. So, yeah, I thought that was great as well this morning. Graham.
Sorry, Rufus Black's pitch, and I may be the only person in the room who had never seen the headwinds, tailwinds idea, global forces and what brings us into the position we are just now. But to me, that was quite illuminating. I don't know why that's not front and centre on the news, or something that can be explained like that. I've already pinched it with a notion of sharing some of that with our CI network for our January piece, as a sort of I said to Kate Aylmore, I said, could you get me some of those images or some of those slides? I said, could use it as a bit of a persuader. It might be a little more effective than the jaggy stick we're currently using. So that one, I've been quite impressed at how the whole thing's worked, the 40-hour sort of cycle. When it was explained to me in concept, I'm not so sure I kind of grasped that it was going to look like this, but having seen and been part of it, I really like that kind of a method of it. I think that's been pretty successful. And final thing is the inclusion and reference to technology and the prevalence of technology in an awful lot of the pitches as an enabler to a lean and continuous improvement, and that's kind of something I don't think we can. That it's good to see that's being kind of embraced, and that's progressive. So they were my main things.
Excellent. So that's really good observations and reflections. I think the one thing we don't pinch things in Lean HE. We don't pinch. It's freely shared, and we accept those gifts and we apply them into our own use. So that's one of the things we do well in the global community is we do stuff. As Steve always said over the years, we do good stuff in our own institutions. We come along to meetings and at conferences such as this, and we tell people about what we've done. We share it, and we tell them how we did it, and pass on the tools, and hope that people can learn from that and apply within their own institutions to great effect. So I think what you've just described is a classic example of what we should be doing at this conference. So thanks for that. Steve?
I was reflecting on where Lean HE's come from. Listening to Sarah's presentation just now, because I think it was 2010 or perhaps around about then, that the Lean HE 1.0 that Sarah was at. Do you remember the conference in, were you at the conference in Cardiff, Linda? Which was really early on in the journey. I think it was the first conference that was the Lean HE network in 2014. Yeah. I think there were a couple of earlier conferences, and Cardiff was involved in some of them before then. Thanks, Linda. And it's interesting to see this is coming around. And I wonder if there's anyone on the call who's been around since then who might be able to think about what's changed in that time. Is that Stef back? Well,
yes,
I would say
brilliant timing for a fire drill. Okay, sorry, I'm interrupting. You were in the middle of.
No, it's okay, Steph. We've just been telling jokes, and we've been literally killing time until you came back. That's what we've been doing. So the floor is yours once again.
Once again, okay. Well, I don't think that I said much more than welcome, and I'll try to introduce the concept of sociocracy and how we have been pairing that with lean thinking, elements of lean, and some agile elements in Odisee University College. I'll try to finish the talk at 3. So in 20 minutes instead of 30 minutes, I might be skipping over a few details here and there, but then we have 15 minutes maybe to discuss a few things. Just try to set the scene. Sociocracy, I see there's some spelling mistake here, lost in
Steph,
translation.
sorry, can I talk? When you left, I took your slides off the screen, so you'll need to reshare.
Which is a totally logical thing to do. They were still on my screen, so I was a bit unaware that you didn't see them. So yeah, probably easier to follow my talk when you can actually see what I think you can see. So elements of sociocracy and elements of lean, where if we set the scene here, what sociocracy is something that helps us prioritize in situations in change, and especially in big organizations, but also it also works in smaller ones where there are many projects, many improvements to be made, many people involved, and many even more opinions than people usually. We need a way to prioritize and to collaborate. Sociocracy is a way to do that. To me, it's bringing the human dimension, the people, into the lean approach. Everything I say can be found on the Sociocracy 3.0 website and much more. So this is a really basic introduction here. Going back in history, it's Sociocracy 3.0 because there's a few other ways of approaching collaboration and opinion management, I'd say, before democracy being one, of course. Holacracy is one. It also resembles deep democracy. Some of you might know that. It's one of those things that tries to find a better way to collaborate, to cooperate. Underneath this approach are 7 basic principles that normally you should agree on that before even trying to implement this. And there's a few really important things, such as transparency being something you need to be willing to organize in your organization in order for this to work. What this continuous improvement approach or principle is, of course, what makes it really compatible with lean as an approach or a concept. And the center one here, consent, we will be coming back to that, but that's one of the, to me, one of the most powerful elements. It's a principle here, but afterwards it will also be one of the patterns being a central element in the sociocracy approach. Equivalence, people over hierarchy, essentially. And empiricism is something lean enthusiasts are normally also fond of, using data, testing things. So these are the 7 principles where everything else is built upon. The Sociocracy 3.0 is a framework, is a map, a collection of about 70 different patterns, ways of doing things. And you don't need to do all of it at the same time. I've made a small inventory, and all these things in red are the patterns we regularly use in Odisee. So certainly not all of them, but quite a few. And using a way of looking at it that I stole from my Dutch colleague Terence, where he came up with a menu style approach to lean. Well, if lean in Terrence's approach is a restaurant menu, then this is a self-service restaurant. You can go to Sociocracy and scoop everything up your plate that you like and leave the rest for another day, which makes it easy to start wherever you think you can start in your situation, your organization, and there's many differences across the board. So one organization will probably want to start with different things, different ways of approaching it. Now, we usually use or explicitly refer to the 3 mantras to the extent that many, if not all, important meetings in our institute start with, on the slides, with these 3 mantras. We want to be a learning community, and in order to be a learning community, it sounds strange, but many educational institutes are not learning communities. They teach, they don't learn. And we want to get people in the right state of mind before going into meetings. So we tell them, and we have them in big poster versions on the wall sometimes, but also on the slides. It's not either or, but both and more. Not all things are choices. Sometimes you can do 2 things at the same time. To the right, good enough for now, safe enough to try. We try not to discuss everything to the last point, plan for every single contingency. We try to go ahead as soon as it's good enough to try. And then the one in the middle is important for meetings. Artful participation, one of the hardest things of the 3, I think, to explain, but we want to encourage people to add to the effectiveness of meetings, which means that you interrupt and you contribute things when it's useful, and you don't when you don't have anything else or additional to contribute. So for some people, it means speaking up more. For some people, including yours, truthful, it means shutting up more than usual. Well, that is my problem usually. So these 3 is something we almost always emphasize before going into big meetings. I have tried to pick a few of the S3 sociocracy patterns that I think that may inspire you to experiment with in the short term. It's no use describing all 70 patterns. I don't have the time for that. Neither do we have the mental space at the second day of a conference to go through 70 different patterns. I've taken a few that I think are easy to integrate in your day-to-day procedures. The most important one, I think, is the concept of a driver. We all have problems. We all have things that don't work as they should work, things that we want to improve. We're a lean community. We always try to improve things, but the question becomes what to improve? And a driver is a way to describe what needs to be improved. And it has a very strict formula where first you describe what you do now, what the consequences or the effects are, good ones, bad ones, and then describe what you need and what the impact should be. That's not the same as the solution you would like to see. It's describing what is needed in order to have a certain result or impact. So the current state and the future, or the state you want to see, and of course there's tension between those two. If not, then there's no reason to change. And a driver is something that helps you describe the tension between the current state and the ideal state. And from tension, anyone who has been playing with those what they called elastic bands, try to use an elastic band, put some tension on it, and you know that from tension comes energy. And if the tension is big enough, you will get the energy in the organization to change things. So it's a way to make that tension very explicit, which can be quite uncomfortable, of course, but if it's not uncomfortable, nobody is going to want to change anyway. So it helps you prioritize. It helps you navigate via tension. If you have a driver, a description of current state versus ideal state that creates energy in an organization, it helps you respond to those drivers, to those changes you want to see. And if nobody gets any energy from that tension, then it's probably not something you should try to change, because it's not going to change anyway. So it helps you prioritize in the long run, in the short run. You will find those poster type figures for almost all patterns that you can use to communicate and to help you integrate that pattern in an organization. Drivers, very important one. Of course, as soon as you want to respond to a driver, then the question becomes, how do we do that? We do, who is we? What do we need? Who do we need? And then we need to clarify what I would call the playing field to tackle a driver. Maybe too many sports analogies in one sentence. But to clarify responsibilities, how far that responsibility or even autonomy goes, who do we need to help, how do we describe what is a good solution, a bad solution, by when do we want a solution, when will we review whether it has worked. That is called a delegation canvas. I've seen a similar thing last year in Cambridge. I don't remember who presented a similar canvas. It wasn't called a domain description, but in practice was the same thing. So similar things exist in the world of lean. So clarification of domains. And that's the first step towards solutions, of course. Then one of the patterns that I like best, except for drivers, is consent decision-making. Consent decision-making is another way of deciding not top-down, not consensus, but consent. It's about making smart decisions in a fast way in groups. It is especially helpful if you're in a situation, in a context, an organization where decisions are regularly delayed, discussed, rediscussed, and you get the same meetings over and over again. Discussions take a long time. Then consent decision making speeds things up. That's why I like it better than deep democracy, where you also try to integrate the minority opinion. This does more or less the same thing without ending up in endless loops. On the other hand, if you're in an organization where people take decisions way too fast, this is a way to slow people down, because you will be looking for objections, which slows things down. In my institute, in Odisee, we have made this our default decision-making method. We always use consent, except when it's impossible to do so. When there's a fire, we're not going to do a consent decision about whether to evacuate or not. That's a top-down decision, go out. But it's ordinarily, it's a default. It's about seeking out objections. You will ask people whether they object to your solution, to your proposal. And the idea is to consider objections to a proposal as gifts, because it will help you to make better decisions, to evolve proposals into better proposals. So in essence, consent decision making is about seeking out objections, to get group feedback, to use that collective wisdom, and to ask people whether they see something in your proposal, in your decision, that could create negative effects, or that maybe I'm missing something obvious that I don't see. And as long as people have good arguments, covered up, backed up by data, if possible, then we will integrate that. And not because the person objecting has some very important hierarchical role, or has 3 doctorates, etc. If there's no good argument, we're not going to do anything with it. Arguments have power, not people, in a consent decision making. Of course, there's always that type of meetings where people are hesitant to speak up, to object. Some people always object. Some people always wait until the boss says yes or no, and then they make their minds up. An elegant way to avoid that is to have people give feedback simultaneously. And in the beginning, it's a good idea to do that very explicitly by having people answer, not by talking, but by giving hand signals. If you like the proposal, of course, you go like this. If you have a worry, you're not quite sure, you go like that. And if you have an objection that you think, well, there's something negative here, you give a present. And if you ask people to do that simultaneously, nobody can wait for the boss to make up their mind. And then usually you get not the same people to give feedback. And you get a lot more diverse feedback than you used to get before that. That's consent decision making. Bit awkward the first time in a meeting where you go like this with hand signals, but it gets comfortable quite fast. The 10th time, everybody's going like this, no problem. It works well. Just stick to the pattern very strictly the first few times, and things become less awkward soon. If you have a driver looking for a solution, then there's always the proposal forming, which is another pattern. It's a bit complex here to go through that in the limited time frame that I have. But the essential part here is, how do you find the people that will come up with the first solution or the first proposal to answer to the driver to solve our problem? Well, the trick is to have a tuner group. A small, you could call that a working group. If you like working groups, call it a working group. Otherwise, it's a tuner group. But don't have people nominate themselves. Usually you get always the same people as volunteers, or the same people are asked to join working groups. What we regularly do is role selection. We have the big group, whatever that may be, nominate people. Especially in the beginning, it's with anonymous, what you call it, everybody writes down a name on a piece of paper. Nobody knows who's selected who. With some arguments. I think person X should join that working group because X, Y, Z. And it usually ends up being other people than the typical people that want to be in working groups. So you get the people that actually do the job you want to change ending up in such a working group. Voting, yeah, anonymous voting, that's quite a not a too difficult a word. But you get new people. Of course, people can choose not to join the working group if they have good arguments, such as I don't work on Fridays and all the meetings will be on Friday. That would be a good argument not to join the working group, for example, or I have too much work already and nobody else can do it. So nominate people, check for objections once again, and then you have a working group, a tuner group. You can celebrate, have cake, beer, whatever you like best. And they come up with a proposal to the big group, consent decision making once, twice, as many times as necessary. Similar thing, and then I'm going towards the end of my pattern selection, is how to gather input in meetings. Depends on how important it is to get input from everyone. Typical way of approaching it is going around the group and ask for, do you have some remaining input? And then you're certain of one thing, you lose a lot of time. Is it very important to get everybody to agree or not to give input? Then you have to do a round. If not, just ask the group, is there someone who has something to say? If not, okay. We call that the popcorn. If there's something that makes you pop, please do. If not, there's always some residual corn at the bottom of the plate that didn't pop. That's totally okay. Depends on your group. If you have a bunch of loud people, don't do a round because they will all want to talk. If it's not necessary, then just do a popcorn round. But do it in variations. Don't start with the same person every time. If you're doing rounds, start with other people, take different directions, make people uncomfortable so they cannot know who needs to talk first and wait for the other one. So that's always important. There are many others, going from record agreements. There's nice patterns as in challenge the status quo, etc. Daily stand-ups, all these things are in there too. To me, there's two patterns that are really important. Adapt patterns to context. Seek out what works for you, and if it doesn't, change it so that it works for you. And most importantly, be the change you want to see in your organization. Don't wait for the organization to adapt, to adopt consent decision making. Just do it in your own group, do it in your own part of the organization, etc. Don't wait for the rest. Just start being the change. I think those two are the most important ones in that big set of 70. That said, there is 10 minutes left for questions, a discussion maybe, and I suggest we do that with the popcorn method. If you have something to say, please do pop that corn, and if you have the same question as somebody else, just shout bingo in the chat box, and then we know that many people have the same question. No need to ask the same question 5 times, just say bingo. Works in meetings, by the way, if you want to avoid people saying the same thing over and over.
Okay, well, I'll lay the challenge down then, Stef, for people to put some questions in the chat or stick their hand up. But yeah, I mean, I mean, a few observations just to give people some time to formulate their questions. I think, you know, the 3 mantras for a learning community I thought were you know, really fascinating, and I think you know, we've got people from across the world here today, and I'm sure many different cultures. But I was thinking this concept of interrupting people, and you know, I've been in so many meetings where, you know, I'm like, oh my, I just love to interrupt that person, but we're too polite in certain parts of the world. So I think we need to get better at learning from others and you know, interrupting, because the number of times I've been in a meeting where somebody said, have you got anything to add? No, I agree with so-and-so, and then they go on to speak for 5 minutes, repeating exactly what somebody else has just said. So bingo would be a shortcut way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in that way, if 8 people start shouting bingo, and the bigger the meeting, the funnier it becomes if everybody starts shouting bingo. And the more chance you have that people will shout bingo because they think it's funny. But at least it saves so much time, definitely.
And I think so. Jo has said she really liked us. We too often try to implement ideas without giving ample opportunity to staff to object. Would ensure we didn't try and press ahead with implementation until we have properly considered everything in advance. And then we have a bingo on that one. So obviously resonated with others. So thank you for that. And I think
I almost agree.
Almost okay
with what Jo is saying there, except for the fact that that there's the word everything in there. Please do not wait with implementation till you have properly considered everything in advance. You will never implement anything. So that's where the third mantra comes in. Mm-hmm. Don't wait until you have properly considered everything. Try to consider as much as possible, but don't wait for. I mean, you'll be planning for 5 years, and yeah, when the planning is over, the project. So good enough for now. Safe. Will we break things if we try some of it now? Yeah. No. Okay, let's go ahead.
So don't let perfection be the enemy of the good.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And again, bingo on that one. So that's good. We're getting the hang of this. This is bringing me back to my youth when one of my first jobs was a bingo caller. So I'm you know, it's taking me back. This is fantastic. The other thing that struck me was this notion of the objections. So we've talked about like objections and concerns, and it made me think of a couple of books that I really like. And there's one called Rebel Ideas by Matthew Syed, and the other one being, I think many people relate to this one, Turn the Ship Around by David Marquet, I think his surname is. Fascinating, and his is a intent-based leadership and intent-based decision making, so not a million miles away. But Rebel Ideas is about, don't surround yourself with people that think like you. Lots of different perspectives, and creating an environment where people are encouraged to raise different points of view, to object, to raise concerns. That's when you really get into good decisions ultimately and good way forward.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Yes, Steve Yorkson asking if I was a bingo caller. That's not really the main type of questions that we're looking for in this session, but the answer was yes. Any other questions for Stef? Stef, I think you've done a fantastic job. I don't think there's anyone else during this conference that had to evacuate for a fire alarm and then recompose themselves so quickly and then deliver a fantastic presentation. So you've done an amazing job. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, Linda says she's in awe. I think we'd all be in. Oh my, we'd be flustered.
Well, but I would probably not be composed as quickly if the building was actually in flames. But yeah, well, I have been teaching quite a few years, so the one fire alarm doesn't throw me off too much. But thank you for the compliment. Anyway.
Excellent. No, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.